There we go. I think we're live on YouTube. Hello, everybody. Thanks for joining us. Oh dear, it's not a bad Friday night here. Actually, it's quite nice. It's just been out with the dogs. Nice fresh breeze, not too cold, and just sort of settling in for the night. So thought we'd pop on and do a wee chat tonight about Dune, the movie, the David Lynch one. As we discovered that it was the 37th anniversary of the film, and we're quite fond of the film. I have to say, I really enjoy it. So if anybody's there and wants to comment or has any questions about the movie or anything to do with Dune itself, then fire away your comments and questions tonight. Be glad to hear them. If anybody is there, give us a wee shout that you can hear me okay. And I've got a wee bit of news to give you as well tonight, and just run through a few things really. So I'm a bit out of breath because I just ran to the toilet there quickly, and then back in time for the broadcast. So I'll take a wee quick sip of the precious fluids. And just tell you just a wee bit about what we've been up to this week. So we've got another audio book up on the station, and we've gone with the H.P. Lovecraft's Dagon, which again, we're a big fan of H.P. Lovecraft, Robert E. Howard, that kind of stuff, and we're hoping to put up a few more of these audio books, and we're probably going to go with the first of the Conan stories next as well. I think it's the Phoenix and the Sword. So just from a chronological point of view, we've been putting up a few firsts, if you like, and especially with some of the Philip K. Dick stuff as well. So we're looking forward to doing a few more audio books, and reading that one was quite a pleasure. Sat and I kind of worked at it at night, trying to be quiet, not to wake the wife and son. So sort of trying to whisper into that, give it that right sense, I think, for that kind of Lovecraft story. So I'm quite enjoyed doing that. And a few other things. We're going to have a wee chat today about what I call the footnotes in the Dune Ph.D. that we've produced. Excuse me. Bear with me one wee second. See if I can find one of me wraps. I haven't a clue where any of them are at the minute. We'll keep a wee eye out for them. But it occurred to me that while we've taken you through all these videos on the Ph.D., which was, I suppose, to give it its full title, is Evolution, Ecology, and the Messianic Hero in Frank Herbert's Dune series. And it's quite a chunky piece of work, but the one thing that we haven't done really in regards to the PhD, taking plenty of questions and answers on the thing, is that we haven't run through the footnotes. Hello, Holly. That's just my dog coming in. How are you doing, pet? And it occurred to me that, and particularly because of the limitations of the PhD, I buried quite a bit of information in the footnotes. And I thought once we have a wee chat tonight about David Lynch's Dune, why I think it's a particularly good film, we'd start with running into the footnotes and talking about whatever we happen to find there. Now, obviously, a lot of them are going to be, look this book up, look that, this page number, that page number. But in terms of doing the PhD, I did manage to bury, I think my footnotes come to about 10,000 words. And there's quite a lot of information, and just in relation to different little things about Frank Herbert and the Dune universe that couldn't really be fitted into the PhD proper, if you like. So they're more like just wee asides and bits of information that we had to remove from the body text. And I suppose there's different rules about putting stuff into footnotes. So that was kind of a bit of a fun aspect of doing the PhD, was to try and squeeze as much information into there as possible. So I thought we'd start with the first one tonight at some point, which is to do with why Frank Herbert's not in the Big Four anymore, and what the Big Four are, I suppose. And it's to do with, I suppose, from studies of science fiction history, especially to do with Brian Aldiss's work on the billion-year spree and trillion-year spree. But Frank Herbert, Isaac Asimov, Robert E. Heinlein, and Arthur C. Clarke were collectively known at this time as a sort of science fiction super league, and were, I suppose, referred to by Aldous in his historical books on science fiction as the Big Four. Now, ever since this, and I thought I particularly noted it at around the time of Arthur C. Clarke's death, and particularly in his obituary, I think I point out that he'd been noted as one of the big three, I think. And from this point on, we seem to see a relegation of Frank Herbert out of this group. And if you go to your Wikipedia pages, For Arthur C. Clarke, for Robert E. Heinlein, for Isaac Asimov, you'll see them described as the big three, not the big four. And I think they're referencing and particularly a book by Carl Friedman on science fiction. But I'd also sort of picked up on this in the obituary. So if you bear with me 1 wee second. There we go. So this is the thing itself. And as I said, just for some conversation topics as we work through these things, I dare say there's not too many people joining us tonight, actually, because there's an awful lot of good TVs hit the streaming services, hasn't it? It's we've got The Witcher is back, and The Expanse is back, and what else have we got? We've got The Death of Cowboy Bebop, I suppose. Pardon me. We have The Wheel of Time going on at the minute. So quite a lot of interesting TV hitting the streaming services. Excuse me. And as I said, just in terms of having wee things within my first chapter, that's probably the only footnote I would say was in relation to this sort of relegation of Frank Herbert from this group as the Big Four, this science fiction super league, and as it's a sort of an attempt to rewrite science fiction history, I suppose, and it's a one of those kind of things. Let me just see if I can find this one for you. There we go. Now, just my wee footnote. Now, this was written goodness knows how many years ago. In terms of the Big Four, etc., etc. I'll just read what it says in the Ph.D. So, Herbert would be considered as a part of a group of authors known as the Big Four, together with Isaac Asimov, Robert A. Heinlein, and Sir Arthur C. Clarke. This association was not from any joint efforts, but rather from the fact that these four authors became household names primarily with the sales of their books, as opposed to the previously traditional means in 20th century science fiction, pulp and magazine formats. So just in terms of what I've put into the footnote at the time, and I would say that this is incomplete, that we would have to have, I think, Carl Friedman's work on this. And I think it's Carl Friedman, as I said, that's referenced on the Wikipedia pages for Arthur C. Clarke, Isaac Asimov, and Robert E. Heinlein. Haven't looked. Robert A. Heinlein. Sorry, I haven't looked at their Wikipedia pages in a while, but I always often noted this. So what I have here says that Herbert was notably left out of this group, renamed and reshaped to become the Big Three, in an article by Lech Mintod Sis and Steve Bird on the death of Arthur C. Clarke in 2008. The article in question could be found at the Times Online website. That link, as you'll see in the first episode of our series, is a dead link, so it doesn't work anymore. Science fiction author and historian Brian Aldiss makes quite clear the distinction of the Big Four in his seminal History of Science Fiction Trillion Year Spree, Aldiss and Wingrove, 1986. This distinction remains a quotable fact, hyperlinked in all of Asimov, Heinlein, and Clarke's respective entries on Wikipedia. It is, in my opinion, this article's research and its constant referencing the source material on the World Wide Web that continues to do a great disservice to Frank Herbert. And there you go. That's our footnote number one, if you like, straight away. And I still think it's a bit sad. And I think Frank Herbert definitely and absolutely belongs in that group. There's Brad. Hi, Brad. Greetings, Doug. I came in late, so I'm a few minutes behind live. Not to worry, Brad. Just started. I was just commenting, Brad, on I'm not too sure how many people would be here tonight on the account of an awful lot of new, I suppose, science fiction fantasy series hitting the streaming services. But thanks very much for joining us. Tonight, Brad, as I was saying, I'm going to start really in these wee episodes, these wee live streams, start talking about some of the footnotes that are in the Ph.D. basically. As much as they're in all the videos, if for all the what do we call it, the Dune piled higher and deeper, if you like, all of that stuff is the full Ph.D. All of the references and footnotes are all at the back, so they've kind of become endnotes, and it was the only way to really deal with transferring this material to an audio-visual kind of format. If we put all these footnotes in throughout the videos as they're appearing, you'd have to stop it and read it. So we kind of converted them to endnotes, and they're each one, they're at the back of the different episodes. And if you watch the episodes all put together, you'll get a big block of all the references for each chapter. So a lot of them are just, we were saying a lot of them are just referencing a page number, standard kind of academic references. But because of word length, I actually hid an awful lot of things into my footnotes and buried, some quite quirky little bits of information and so on. The other only really one that here that's relevant, as I was saying, just this is about why Herbert's been relegated from the big four. And it's kind of the work of science fiction academics and journalists, if you like. I'm just saying in terms of his output, it's true, at least of novels and short stories, but perhaps not on the scale of Herbert's work. Clarke and Heinlein wrote considerably more novels and short stories, while Asimov is perhaps one of the most prolific writers of all time, with a vast output of material in numerous areas of writing, both fictional and factual. So it's just in terms of what have we got of interest within the PhD. Is there anything of real interest here at all within these wee footnotes? And I thought, yeah, there is, and we hadn't discussed them. And just thought that they would give us little pointers, little things to look at and even investigate as we go through our sort of Friday night, Saturday night sci-fi things. So the other thing, guys, was for anybody who's watching, I've got a few wee announcements to make, and that we're going to try and do a few things with the Science Fiction Station coming up. But in particular on Monday, and this will be at 9 o'clock Greenwich Mean Time. So that's Monday, the 20th of December. We're going to be doing our first ever book launch on the Science Fiction Station, which I'm really looking forward to. And it's kind of made me kind of, I suppose, kick myself up the backside in terms of looking at technology and what I can integrate and what I can use with the Science Fiction Station. So we're going to be joined by our first guest on the station. It's going to be Dr. Cara Kennedy. So you're going to have not one, but two Dune doctors having a chat. And we're also going to be celebrating the launch of her new book on Dune, which is called Women's Agency in the Dune Universe. And I'm really looking forward to this. So if anybody's out there that you can join us here live at 9 o'clock on the 20th of December, that's 9 p.m. GMT, folks. It'll be myself and Dr. Cara Kennedy having a chat about her new book, Women's Agency in the Dune Universe. It's a book features quite a lot. Features very much the Bene Gesserit, I think, is the real focus of this. So for anybody who's Bene Gesserit fans or fans of feminist academia, the Dune universe, all of this thing, if you're a Dune nut, that you'll really like this, I hope. And we'll do our best to make it interesting. I think I've had a bit of a chat with Karen about this, and I think it's really interesting that if you know about my work and how much I had to throw out, and my kind of annoyance in that because of where I was at within my work comes across as what I would call quite male-centric, but it's sort of looking at things like the archetypes of the hero, within science fiction literature, this kind of thing, and it is male-orientated, some of this stuff in a way, especially when you think of science fiction as a genre, in the 50s and 60s. So I actually delighted to see Kara's work on this because it provides all the female stuff was cut from my work. And as I said, I often quite annoyed that it comes across as male-centric. So it's absolutely great to see the other side of this balance and looking at the Dune universe, and particularly through Women's Agency and the Dune universe, because there have been some articles that I've read before on this kind of thing. The one that comes to mind, if I can, oh goodness, is it? I think it's by Jack Hand, if I'm not mistaken, and it's to do. I think it looked at. This is quite an old article. I think it looked very much at the women in terms of just kind of standard domestic roles in the Dune universe. And if I can remember correctly, it really didn't look past the first book, and it was very poor fare and kind of looking at the Dune universe from a feminist point of view. So this is good stuff, folks, and I think you'll be delighted with it. So if you can join us for a chat, and if you've got any questions for myself or Cara on Monday, get thinking, and I hope you can make it, and bring your friends as well if you've got anybody who's into Dune. It should be an interesting experience. Brad says, the first time I listened to your episodes, I would listen to it while working, so I missed the footnotes entirely. So this is a very good for me. Thank you. Well, Brad, it's interesting because I suppose when people watch the videos, and it's these little numbers that appear down in the bottom corner. I suppose I haven't flipped. Maybe it's down that corner. They should be in the bottom right of the corner on the videos. There's about 520 of them, if I'm not mistaken. I'm not too sure. Actually, it's been a while since I've looked at this. This is the real thing. It's the only copy I've got of it. And let me see. But most of them would just be, as I said, on the whole. And funny enough, referencing pictures in this kind of works really bad, by the way. I think the academic world could learn something from YouTube, I think. Let me see, how far did we get to? Okay, a bit more than that, I think. Sorry. Should know this better. It looks like we've got 555 references in the thing. So it's quite a lot of work. Quite a lot of stuff. There's Joseph Smith. June fan. Heidi will be driving during our chat today, so we'll have a clap. But hello to all. Thanks, Joseph. Keep your hands on the wheel, mate. Thanks for joining us. So we've got 555 notes. Now, a lot of these would be just sort of referencing, oh, this is where that book came from. This is where that particular thing, look at this page, etc. And just in regards to sort of the kind of books that we use within it, it's quite interesting. But as I said, I tended to bury stuff. I suppose it's not really too obvious until we get going. But within, and there we go, for example. So the idea is just to sort of chat about that and get it organized. And just talked about the first one there, and it is a thing of, and I suppose I sort of set out some of my feelings on certain things a wee bit better. And particular, for example, guys, I remember one. Here's a couple of things that we could talk about tonight, but I'll just put it aside. But in particular, there is one footnote I think I really take great pains to point out on the videos is number 400, and it's because it's pointing to a lie. If you see what I mean, a dishonesty, and what you're actually getting is a quotation from me. And in particular, I want to go, please look at this number 400. There's a whole chunk of text on explaining why this isn't true. If you see what I mean, there's Keith saying, hiya, Doc. Hiya, Keith. Thanks for joining us. How's it going? I hope you're all keeping well, everybody, by the way. So we're talking about the over-the-top glory that is the David Lynch version of Dune today. And Peyton Campbell said, did you write this thesis for a doctoral program? If so, what institution was it a part of? Oh, okay. Let's see. We'll go. Yes, Keith, by the way. First of all, we just got a wee bit sidetracked because what we're about today was absolutely, we want to have a wee chat about David Lynch's Dune and the wonder of it. And it's its 37th anniversary. And I didn't even know this, but Kyle McLachlan did a wee tweet on Twitter. I'm quite amazed that I'm actually on Twitter myself. And I thought, and I had to think about it. Went, bloody hell, yeah, it's 2021. And goodness gracious, I saw this when I was 11 years old. And I even had a kind of sticker album, and wasn't very old, and I quite enjoyed it, I have to say. But just quickly, Keith, we were also saying that we're going to start doing a wee run through on these live broadcasts for Dune fans, talking about the footnotes. We're going to try and take you through all 500, well, not all 555 of them, but a lot of them, as I said, are just page references. So that was just quickly something that there are lots of little oddities and little bits of little factoids, I suppose you would call them these days, little bits of information and curiosities there's 10,000 words buried in there. So in terms of the PhD, it amounts to 1/10, if you like, extra content, because I wasn't allowed to put it so I snuck it in. To answer your question, Peyton Campbell, did I write it for a doctoral program? Sort of. Well, yeah, I did it for a PhD and was awarded a doctorate because of this work. So that's how I got my doctorate. What institution was it a part of? I don't like to advertise them, because it's. But I did it. I'm a graduate of different universities, but simply put, with the PhD, if you're applying for one, generally, I suppose it works very different if you're a scientist. Your PhD your title tends to be handed to you, go do some work. If you're within the arts and humanities, you tend to have to come up with your own ideas and pretty much follow that along. So I applied, I actually had 3 different goes at my PhD. And you could argue that the one place I should have went to do it was the University of Liverpool. and I applied there the second time, and they lost my application. And I wasted an entire year with them, because they do run a science fiction studies program, and they have the Sidney Jones Library. So it's quite a long story. But the third time I applied to the University of Ulster and was interviewed. And you put in two applications, usually. So my primary application was to look at, believe it or not, the Toynbee Cully, which is an Irish epic saga. And I was going to look at it in terms of the Homeric Iliad, epics, the Iliad and the Odyssey. I wanted to do a sort of comparative myth and literature thing. So I went to the McGee campus in Northern Ireland of the University of Ulster, where I was kind of interviewed by all the wrong people for the wrong reasons, if you see what I mean. And it kind of left me quite annoyed with the whole thing. And the story goes, I attended a party, lots of university people, and made my feelings clear as to what I thought of them and their institution, based on that, and then got a phone call asking me to come in for another interview. So apparently, what my condemnation of their institute was quite bad, and I got interviewed at a different campus by, I suppose, the right people from the right department. And at that point, I was so sick of the process that I went through that I abandoned my primary PhD topic, and looking at Frank Herbert and his work was my secondary topic. I was going to do a thematic analysis of sort of probably a literary biography of Frank Herbert, to be honest with you, which is a bit bland and boring and quite a common thing within literature PhDs. And after looking into him for I went with my second option basically. And the program, where the funding is, it's American money over here. And simply put, you've got to try and line up your ideas with where the money is if you want to get a PhD. Bottom line, they're prepared to invest in American authors of the 20th century, is the funding area that I landed in. And so I got in there. And in terms of Dune, nobody done this kind of size of work on all 6 Dune books, and you can see why. It's if you look at the first episode, it tells you why people academically wouldn't go near it. That's changed a lot, and I have to say, Cara Kennedy's work on women's agency in the Dune series is also a PhD that looks at all 6 Dune books by Frank Herbert. The big flaw in a lot of academic work on Frank Herbert's Dune is that it's either done at a certain time when the whole series doesn't really exist, or it just focuses on Dune. And as we all know, Dune's a book that if you don't get past the first book, arguably you've been deceived quite badly by the author, and you go away thinking one thing has happened, I suppose. I suppose that in terms of the David Lynch film, I saw the film first. I came away from that film thinking, yeah, Paul Atreides is the Messiah, and he makes it rain. Awesome. Getting sidetracked is what these live chats do best, Keith says. Keith, well, it's all tangential, I think. The Lynch movie was my introduction to Dune, says Brad. It came out when I was 10, although in retrospect, it does admittedly have weaknesses. I still love it. I think it's hard to point at anything, go, there's perfection, Brad. There's nothing that's perfect, I think. And I don't even think it comes close to perfection. I just think it's a great, and I'm going to use this word, fun film. I think it's a great piece of entertainment. And there's lots to just to think about and digest about how well done it is. And I still think, guys, I don't know if you're old enough to remember the criticism of the time. Everything was about how shit it looked, how backward it looked, how antiquated, how mechanical, how Victorian, how Ottoman Empire, if you know what I mean. And I think in the face of films like Star Wars, Empire Strikes Back, and Blade Runner, and this kind of science fiction, and the very sort of pretty family orientated sci-fi of Steven Spielberg, it had a grotesquerie, but I think all of that, the mechanical look of the technology, everything about it, if you know your Dune, I think it was bang on, and I think just nobody got it. And I didn't really get it myself at the time, but in retrospect, the David Lynch universe, Dune universe, feels like it has the look and feel of the Dune universe I would expect from the books in terms of the technology, if that makes sense. And it has something of the gothic, and I don't know, something of the surreal, and it's everything that David Lynch does really well. I'll tell you this much, guys. I think I was kind of berating myself the other day for saying, "Oh, I used to love David Lynch films," and I think I stopped watching David Lynch films X number of years ago, and I must have missed all of these films and so on. I did a quick check on the bibliography, and it turns out I've only missed two. I think I've done all right on the David Lynch films, and I've missed three, but I've got one of his films. Just saying to the wife, I've actually got one of his movies downstairs on DVD. That I had kept and haven't got around to watching. So, oh, happy days. So I've got it's The Straight Story has been sitting downstairs and I haven't got around to watching it. So I've got a David Lynch film coming up to see, but it's really just Mulholland Drive and I think another one that I've kind of missed out on. But yeah, just that I'd watch it again and again, and I just think it's a really good fun film. The more and more I think about it, the more and more I think it is. There's plenty of things that aren't in the David Lynch film. Almost you could say sections of it just run with synopsis and montage and stuff. But I still think it was a very iconic film. I'm thinking about, I suppose, all of the little things that have survived down the years from it, the images, the phrases. Again, that have kind of stayed iconic, and I think it's bled more into popular culture than a number of certainly than any other form of the franchise that's connected to Dune. Particularly when I think of the Bene Gesserit, and I hope I'm saying that Sian Phillips, I hope as the actress, that look is how I think of the Bene Gesserit, and it's I don't know. I think there's the feel to it. It's got something of the old kind of Flash Gordon, Buck Rogers Saturday morning serials, if you know what I mean. That kind of not quite Art Deco. I think it's more gothic, and you can feel a hint of Giger in it as well. The visual, Keith saying the visual designs in the film are phenomenal. I think better than 2021. I agree. I'll tell you something about the visual design. The more and more I look at the new film, and I pay attention, guys. Whenever I've been making these Dune videos, the object for me when putting the videos together is to try and get as many images that are absolutely bang on relevant and to what we're talking about, to really help that bring another level of understanding to me just reading the thing, and it's particularly the concept art that's done for the David Lynch film. There's a lot of Ron Miller stuff there, fantastic, and you can kind of see some of this in the film, in the movie, maybe. And I've been thinking about what Keith said about the new film, and seeing the concept art. A lot of these artists are creating this vision that Danny then goes and films, and I suppose it's almost like you get a sense that they have to build a picture for him before he can go film it. If you see what I mean, I don't know. It's kind of a funny way of looking at it. I don't tend to think of it. Find it hard to explain that one on my own head, but it's not everything about this visual thing. The visual designs in the film are phenomenal. I think better than 2021 and Bene Gesserit, the original Spice Girls. I think she's how the Reverend Mother has been, Gaius Hel Mohim's been portrayed, I think, on screen so far. I think Sian Phillips nailed it, and I think she got it right in terms of how to present the Bene Gesserit, how to present it in a way that's, I suppose, not cruel, but there's a level of compassion for Paul in her performance, which is about right. I think it's a very it humanizes the Bene Gesserit, whereas I think when we make them these kind of witch sorceresses and attempt to not dehumanize, but to make them mystical, I suppose. It takes away from the reality of them, I think. But the Bene Gesserit definitely within the David within, I keep saying I want to say within Dune, but within David Lynch's version. Sorry, I really I like that. I like the way they're presented, and as I said, there's something of the whole start to June when the Reverend Mother turns up. There's something kind of and the castle and Caladan. There's something of Elsinore and that kind of thing. Um, yeah, I think it's great. It's old fashioned filmmaking. I think it's before all of this super digital stuff. Smoke and mirrors and the old ways. I don't know, guys. I've probably said that my favorite film is Excalibur, and you've got Patrick Stewart, I suppose, as Leon de Grance, and it quite similar to a bit like Gurney Halleck and Dune, if you think about it. And there's a moment where they're going to film them. Sorry, that was almost Monty Python-esque. It's just before the battle at the end, and it's a kind of meta moment in the film that there was only a few of us. How are we going to fight this big army? We'll use the old ways, smoke and speed of sound, this kind of thing. And it's kind of almost referring to the film itself. I think, how are we going to film this? The old ways with smoke and mirrors, this kind of thing. And these films that pull out all these kind of stops to do this kind of thing, the old fashioned way, I think end up with something much more visceral and feels more real than all of the. I think that the digital world doesn't present as reality to me on the screen. It seems always fake, no matter how good it is. I have to say, excuse me. Brad says it was the leaders of the Galactic Empire. Of course, it's covered in gold, as against Star Wars, where the Emperor's rooms there's this minimal, which, yeah. I suppose the Star Wars universe was always meant to have a very lived-in look, wasn't it? Everything's meant to be old and battered. When you go for I thought emperors tend to be quite grandiose in their presentation, don't they? It's the same as kind of emperors' buildings, church buildings, these kind of things. They often have to be the largest, and I suppose that the emperor's kind of what's the I'm trying to think of the phrase. What is it? Penis substitute is going to be his Death Star, really, isn't it? Says a lot about the emperor. The Emperor and David Lynch's Dune, getting little bits of connections, by the way, is played by. See, I'm a lot better with actors' names in this film, I suppose. I'm really bad with names. Jose Ferrer, who, of course, if you know your Lawrence of Arabia, is playing the Ottoman officer in Lawrence of Arabia as well. That little link between Lawrence of Arabia and Dune is through him. Which is quite interesting. I saw a film of his a long time ago. It's an old one. It's one of those war movies. It's a good fun film called the Cockleshell Heroes. If anybody hasn't seen it, it's a really good movie. I have to say, one of those old hello type of World War II movies, black and white, I think, but really good. I have to say. But yeah, I think he made quite a good emperor. And the Emperor sits the golden lion throne, everything. But to me in particular, I thought the Hunter Seeker is one of those things. I've been thinking about the Hunter Seekers and the different Dune representations of Dune on the TV. And the TV series is quite a thin, little, sleek thing. Something quite similar in the new movie. And I still think the old thing with the little pendulum going tick-tock within the David Lynch, I think that's brilliant. It just looks like some giant hypodermic needle coming along, And I just thought, again, there's comments by the God Emperor in the Dune universe about it's to do with the nature of technology, and it's something I pointed out about the no ships is that isn't he comment on how mechanical they are, and I always felt that the Dune universe it's meant to be this society that's retarded technology. Anything that comes close to being like artificially intelligent is shut down. So the more and more I think these things look mechanical, then the more and more likely that they're left to be investigated, if you see what I mean. Just a wee thesis on this. If you've got any questions, by the way, guys, fire away. Let me have a wee catch up with your chat. Let's see what we're saying. Can you believe they actually made action figures for the movie? The Fade figure had the hairless cat in the cage. I can believe that, yeah. The Lynch movie, Brad says, was my introduction to Dune. It came out when I was 10, although in retrospect, it does admittedly have weaknesses. I think I read that before, Brad, but absolutely. Said I saw it when I was 11. There you go. So I must be a year older than you, Brad. The visual designs in the film are. Oh, sorry, I'm rereading stuff. Better than 20. Let's catch up. It was the leaders of the Galactic. Yeah, I've read that as well. Sorry, guys. Totally lost. There we go. This thing. There we go. I don't get why the Benny. Here we go. Try and read something new, folks. Sorry about that. I don't get why the Bene Gesserit bothered to test Paul rather than just taking him down, as he was the destruction of thousands of years of work. Excuse me. The test, as far as I'm concerned, Brad, is to make sure he's not a complete monster. And as much as it's take your hand out of the box, it's testing to see if you apply a bit of logic to it, humans are animals. It's meant to be a sort of, I don't know, is it a civilizing test? It's meant to be a test of his character, I think. But there are all sorts of ways to respond to having that needle put at your neck and putting your hand in that box. If he takes his hand out of the box, nothing will have happened to the hand, I suppose. And the question becomes: Would the Bene Gesserit, would Gaius Helmoheim stick the thing in his neck and kill him? Is it a test of obedience? I mean, she said crisis and observation from her point of view. From Paul's point of view, it's a test of obedience and perseverance. Sorry, and there's a level of, it's to do with control, I think. Can you control yourself? Self-control. But I get the sense that there's something to do with the possibility. It's a bit like maybe the possibility that the Kwisatz Haderach is potentially a monster that they can't control, and that's possibly a point where they can determine that and therefore do something about it, I think. I suppose the other thing is that Paul's not meant to be the Kwisatz Haderach, and at this point he's one generation early. So the way it's meant to work is that Paul's meant to be a girl, Paul or Paula. We'll go with Paula for a minute. Let's say that there was a Paula instead of a Paul, and then that Paula would be married to Feyd-Rautha, and then that child would be the one that they're looking to control. And it's also the pathway that everyone's looking to go to the throne. The Harkonnens are looking to go through that generationally, as are the Atreides. So it makes sense almost that the alignment that the Bene Gesserit are looking, and the Kwisatz Haderach that they're looking for, Kwisatz Haderach that they're looking for, is going to line up with that desire of the breeding program, where that person will end up on the throne as well. So I think it's another consideration. He was the destruction of thousands of years of work. Brad, there's a suggestion that there's other lines, by the way. There are multiple lines that they're looking at, but I understand this is the one that they're focusing on, and that there are other lines that they can do this with. There is a really important thing, Brad, that says if you go to the appendices, I keep pointing this out, it subverts everything that you think you know in the Dune universe. It tells you that the Bene Gesserit breeding program is not their breeding program, and that it's they think it is, but it's not, and there's someone else, some other thing behind the whole lot. If you like, Zeus himself, possibly, from my point of view, I suppose. But and as a lot of people miss the appendices. There's Babs saying hello, howdy Doc, hi Babs, howdy y'all, hi Babs, how's it going? Thanks for joining us. Hope you're keeping well. Babs, I have a link for you anytime you want to send me a wee email to sciencefictionstation@gmail.com, and I'll send you that wee link in the email. Excuse me. Let me just say, I think the managers didn't take out Paul because they still thought he was useful. They didn't realize he was not in their control until it was far too late. Yes, it is about, can they control the Kwisatz Haderach? And again, the idea I think there is that the Kwisatz Haderach will end up on the throne, and the Bene Gesserit have no want to be a power behind the throne. They don't ever want to sit on it. They want to basically control whoever is on the throne. And I suppose the at the point where you have unleashed a Kwisatz Haderach, if you can't control it, I suppose then it's time for crisis and observation again to pay attention and see what happens. Of course, this is one of the things that Frank Herbert, by the way, I mean, the idea of the Gom Jabbar as presented, the idea of an animal will not, will do certain things in a trap, has been proven untrue. So, yeah, how something behaves in a trap is as individual as that animal and the person who set that trap. Oh, I haven't received it, Babs. No, I've been checking. So not to, I have checked the email. I'll maybe have a look in the, but if you can fire one again, just send us an email. I'll reply to it with the link. But on How to Be Nosy, I was keeping an eye out for it. Glad you're keeping well, by the way. Yeah. So no, sorry, I didn't receive it. Not, I'll have another wee look, but just need your address really to forward you the wee link. So there we go. No worries at all, Babs. I'll keep a wee eye out for it after the broadcast, and then see what we can do. But yeah, I've got something for you, so hopefully we'll get you to see Dune soon. So the test could also be if you will persist in the task despite the pain. Does mirror the golden path, but Paul defaulted on that. Now, so I suppose the point where I'm going, I think there's a point where the Kwisatz Haderach could be, let's say, not Paul Atreides, but a Phaedrith or a homicidal maniac. I think maybe that would be the point. There've been, I think, again, there's other people that they've attempted this with, and maybe that they've this many men have tried. They tried and died. That kind of thing. And they don't really say how they died, but were they? I'm assuming that if there was a, or is that the water of life test? I'm thinking, or maybe getting that mixed up with, possibly. It's a bizarre thing, I suppose. The idea of why would you want to create a Kwisatz Haderach, we kind of understand that. It's all about looking into the male other memory, where the Bene Gesserit can't look, or to create, I suppose, a being that can look backwards and forwards into male and female other memory. And the whole argument, I suppose, with that is what about possibly with Alia as well, is that Alia is of the same genes as Paul and has a limited prescience. And we have also the issue with the Baron being in her memory as well. It creates all sorts of problems, I suppose. The Gom Jabbar is the high-handed enemy, metaphor, I suppose, really. But the Kwisatz Haderach was to start a war for the Bene Gesserit to refresh the blood through war. Yeah, this is kind of we're talking about the Pelopids and all this stuff, guys, that the Kwisatz Haderach is to start a war to refresh the blood through. Yes, the Bene Gesserit want to renew the human race through war. And if that lines up with Zeus, if you remember, we were talking about Zeus wanting to start the Trojan War. He just wants a war to, filter it all out. Basically, one of these things is incredibly dangerous to me. I don't know which. Let's kill them all. Let's have a war. One of the sort of the things I was talking about, the underlying of the framework, if you like, of the whole Pelopid thing underneath everything in Dune. It's the Gom Jabbar works on a whole lot of different levels, I think. Practically and a logical level, it's nonsense. Sadly, it's not a true thing. But in terms of what it represents, it's a little death, I suppose. Another little death and an initial leap of growth for Paul. And not, as I said, not all of his tests, I think I was pointing out the other day, not all of his tests are of a Gom Jabbar type level. They're economic and political tests for Paul and social tests as well as the incredibly life-threatening, dangerous things, So it's one of those things that we don't. I suppose it's not shown too much. We don't know, and we kind of well, it's possible that the new book, the Brian Herbert, Kevin J. Anderson stuff maybe goes into this. But again, it's about what Herbert doesn't show you and what are the consequences. We don't know, and we hear about other Kwisatz Haderachs in the Dune universe. We hear about a Tleilaxia one, and they commit suicide, very reminiscent of the people from the pre-Erewhonians from Butler's Erewhon. Prescience drives you mad, and a lot of them commit suicide. So there's other Kwisatz Haderachs, and they're not necessarily products of the Bene Gesserit. It's the Bene Tleilax are up to the same sort of thing. Tried and died was the Reverend Mother at the start. Thank you, Brad. Yes. So the question is, how did they die? As it the taking of the water, many men have tried to take the water of life. I wonder if that's what they're talking about. But I was also wondering about how many people survived this Gom Jabbar test with the Bene Gesserit. A lot of Herbert's ideas were nonsense, such as people from the harshest environments make the most effective. So there's a lot of generalizations, and he's best described as I said, has levels of expertise. Does Frank? But they're not massive and everything. And I describe him as a gifted amateur or almost like a hobbyist. He's a journalist, and so he's very good at collecting information. I suppose how he sifts through it is one thing, but there's a lot of things that are in Dune that aren't. They're not 100%. They're not necessarily. They're interesting ideas of their times, maybe, but not everything's bang on. Sometimes hear people talk about with this. I always find it funny when people talk about books as their Bibles, which I find hilarious. It's particularly which book is it that you're talking about, and let's discuss why it's your Bible, if you see what I mean. But the last one I heard that was quite good was somebody telling me that Marcus Aurelius's Meditations was their Bible. I laughed my head off. I just thought it was dear oh dear. But yeah, again, it's people from the harshest environments make the most effective soldiers, not necessarily, Spellsword 91 says, good evening. Good evening, Spellsword. I was wondering if you think the new Dune movies will or should go beyond the first novel, or does it make more sense to leave it where the first novel ends for a satisfying ending? That's a very good question, Spellsword. Excuse me. I think we've got some announcements by Danny Villeneuve tonight that I think he's going to be directing Rendezvous with Rama, which is an Arthur C. Clarke book. So it looks like he's tearing through his childhood favorite books and going to present his vision of them. In terms of what I think our understanding is, Spellsword, that they are going to go full hog at it. Though whether it ends up on the TV or not, I think the argument is that they're going to try and take, with Denis Villeneuve's help, whether he'll be directing them or not, I think they're going to try and take the Dune series as far as Children of Dune, which is where the TV series has gone so far. The interesting thing is if you've only read the first Dune book and you've only ever seen Dune and have not got past that, then everything in the book, as I like to argue, is a trick. There's a fundamental shift in the second Dune novel, Dune Messiah, that gives us all a really big slap in the face in regards to Paul Atreides. So not trying to spoil it for anybody who may not know what I'm talking about, but fundamentally, Paul, if you only get Dune, you can walk away from that story thinking, wow, what a great hero Paul Atreides is, what a guy, and he's he's not that nice, if you see what I mean. So I think in terms of the message that Frank Herbert tries to deliver in Dune, it's about very dangerous heroes like Paul Atreides, and sadly, I suppose, with the David Lynch film, we get to see he's a very dangerous good guy, and we don't get to see what he does next. So, as I said, for me, watching David Lynch's Dune as a kid, very, very satisfying. Loved it. Great, bit grotesque for a young kid, I suppose, but I did enjoy it. And I walked away from that film and I never read the book till maybe 16 years later. So it has the same problem, I suppose, as the David Lynch version. We can walk away from it feeling good about Paul Atreides and what a hero, what a guy, what an amazing hero, and everything ticks the boxes, and we've gone on that heroic journey. So if we don't go to Dune Messiah, then we don't get to see the problem, the inversion, and the warning, if you see what I mean. Um, or if you think the new Dune will, or so I do believe that they are going to go ahead, based on the info coming out of the Hollywood machine. I think Spellsword. Does it make more sense to leave it where the first novel ends for a satisfying ending? It can do, and it depends. I suppose that what you're getting, I think the current Denis Villeneuve's Dune is a heavily sanitized and dumbed down version of the book. In particular, it's very sanitized. It's almost like a delicate little flower. I think I don't know how to put it. There is grotesqueries and weird things, and things that aren't necessarily acceptable to modern day society, but they're not meant to be. That it's a bizarre feudal world set in a far future that's kind of has a retardation to its technological development. So I don't know, because if you do just go Dune, then you've got one message, and it's not what it's the message that we know don't. The only time I think we've seen the proper messages from the TV series, is that we should be very careful if we follow people like Paul Atreides. And again, I suppose it's that if you think about the choice of actor to play Paul, you need somebody who's charismatic, has that kind of following to a modern audience. So I genuinely don't know if it would be satisfying to end it and go, well, there you go, to a modern audience who can't handle anything. There's a nice shiny hero, and that's the end of Dune. If you can handle the proper story of Dune, and you go to Dune Messiah, then wow, this guy makes Hitler look like a real nice guy, I suppose. But it could go either way. Spellsword, I think. I think the film can be satisfying if it ends where it does, because the David Lynch one was, I suppose. But it depends on what you're wanting out of it, and if you want to see Frank Herbert's Dune, I suppose. Excuse me. Keith Cobb says thinking machines are banned 1 second, and as I use this machine that scans food and drink to determine if anything in it is poison. Yep. I mean, again, and I suppose that here, just to follow on with that, Rendezvous with Rama was boring. A lot of speculative fiction exploration of how science could develop, but the plot was just there's an alien spaceship, let's explore it. That was fun. Bye. Bab says loved Lynch's Dune! Exclamation mark. Loved Lynch's Dune. That Leto will always be my Leto. Yeah, Jurgen Prochnow. Again, so well cast. I thought he was excellent. Again, not on screen very much. What he does with what he's got, it's. I think there's always something minimalist about the David Lynch's Dune film, but what you get in the minimum, I think, is for the maximum. Rendezvous with Rama, I haven't read. I've got a bunch of Arthur C. Clarke stuff that I haven't read downstairs, and I'm not. I used to like him when I was a little kid, Keith. Quite a lot, and I have a few of his stories are really good. But I'm not a fan of a lot of his stuff. So I've actually a bunch of, probably whenever I get around to doing a wee program on Arthur C. Clarke, I have a bunch of his stories downstairs that I haven't read. I suppose that my favorite one by Clarke would be Childhood's End, and 2001. But I've got a wee collection of the. Well, I suppose I've always talked about it. The one book that really got me going was Of Time and Stars, which is Arthur C. Clarke. It's kind of the one. If I have to thank one author for kicking me into science fiction, it's Arthur C. Clarke. To this day, as I was about to sort of go a wee bit funny on his writing there, and it's more of his longer stuff. An Ape About the House is arguably one of my favorite stories ever. And it's just it's a lovely little thing in itself, and it's just about domestic life in a world that's changed, I suppose, with a new kind of slavery, maybe, and it's about creativity. It's about keeping up with the Joneses. So I'm not going to sit and slag it off there, actually, but he's an author I kind of drifted away from later, and at the same time, if I see books by him in a secondhand bookshop and I haven't got them, I'll pick them up. I'm the same with all the big four. But yeah, again, so I can't really comment on that one. But sometimes these guys, it's the idea that they're pushing, I suppose. Spellsword 91 says, would love it if they do get beyond the first novel, but it seems like it would take 20 years to do. I don't know. I suppose even with I mean, I will say this. Dune, Denis Villeneuve's Dune felt like a COVID film to me. As much as there's people embracing and that kind of thing, lots of action. It's just that, I don't know, Arrakis seemed bare. The city seemed not like a city. I think somebody's commented that Arrakeen looked like a chunk of the Death Star, and that there seemed to be no life in the city. And maybe that's, I don't know. You're not meant to see the little people much in the Dune series, but you do see them in that city, I suppose. I don't know. I suppose that they can work pretty quick these days. Spell Sword. I think I think we really need to wrap up. I think, to me, no matter what, I'm not going to be able to look at Denis Villeneuve's Dune satisfactorily until it's finished. And until it's finished, I can't think of it really as a complete. I can just think of it as half a thing. And as I said to you guys, I'm used to working with. It's not that it bothers me that it's unfinished, but if he's going to get on with it, I'd like him to get on with it. I'm used to dealing with work that's not finished, so it doesn't bother me too much or is fragmentary. But I can't really just give it. That's a final. Just to really make up my mind properly about it until we see the whole thing. I think there's things that they've done in the first, in Dune Part 1, that are going to cause them real bother down the line. And but the one thing I think I keep saying, folks, you'll know me, is that I think the ecology message, which would have been so timely, and I think it's so important to Dune, is obliterated. And we may yet see it salvaged through the Fremen, who are one of our educators on ecology. But otherwise, I'll be if we don't get any kind of ecological message out of Dune, I'm going to be deeply, deeply dissatisfied by it, I have to say. Yep, God Emperor of Dune is one hell of a book. Yeah, it's a question of, I mean, as much as that, you get that's that talk about let's stop at Children of Dune, but Children of Dune and God Emperor, I think, are fundamentally linked. They're a pair. And wouldn't we all like to see? I think that's a thing. Spellsword is that we'd all. There's a bunch of us here who'd really like to see God Emperor of Dune on the screen, just because we want to see the God Emperor on the screen. I'll throw my hat in to do the voice if anything. I think I can make a good God Emperor, given that Northern Irish, voice with that. Was it the Presbyterian fixation and so on? Denis Villeneuve seems to be leaning hard into the dangerous hero idea. I agree. I think we'll get the 80 billion deaths ending. You'll probably have to show it to us, though. That's the sad thing, Keith, isn't it? It's Frank Herbert doesn't have to. I don't know. The other thing people don't maybe get is that Dune is an anti-war book. Fundamentally, it's an anti-war book. People talk about Dune being written in the 60s, and you need to go, whoa, hang on. Dune started to be written in the 50s, especially with Herbert being involved very briefly in the war. It's an anti-war book, and I like to think of it as a book that's written over a series of books written over 30 odd years. So the idea that everything that we're losing in the Dune movie that Denis Villeneuve is presenting to us is to show us gratuitous, cool battle scenes. And it's something that doesn't happen in the books, really. Battles and stuff are kind of coasted by or mentioned in hindsight, that kind of thing. And I've just what you said there, Keith. You just go. I bet you they'll show us the 80 billion deaths and lose the lesson of it. That the fact is that they talk. It's just about. It's already done. Done so casually. They're just talking about them as statistics. That's the kick. Really, they are talking about these people as statistics because that's what they are. And you start to realize, what Paul is. And I mean, Paul's educating you in a way through Stilgar, but and Dune Messiah, but Stilgar is very much a foil there too. But yeah, it's a bit like this comment, I suppose. They should have said jihad. Yeah, I don't. I'll tell you this much, folks. Jihad and crusade are not interchangeable terms at all. In any sense, if you go into the etymology of the words, they don't mean the same thing. I read Childhood's End recently. I feel it lives up to the hype. Yeah, I found it a very good book. Keith, I read that when I was quite young, and I've read it again, I think, in the late 90s. Um, when I suppose in my mid 20s or something like that. And it is a good book. It's clever, and it's kind of poignant. And yeah, I caught the recent mini series of it a wee while back, and I thought I didn't catch all of it. I didn't see the end of it actually. I don't know where it was, but I haven't been able to see the end of it. I saw the first two. I think it was 3 episodes. But yeah, childhoods and not bad. What is it we call these kind of things? Shaggy God stories, that kind of thing. Um, but yeah, in particular, I thought Arthur C. Clarke does a lot of that kind of stuff. There's kind of, I suppose, applying the idea of science to the mystical and mystical to the science, if you know what I mean. The idea that science would seem like magic to any civilization that wasn't particularly advanced. Excuse me. Rendezvous with Rama and Ringworld. That's that other one. Yeah. Larry Niven, both suffer been written by people more interested in science speculation than writing a good story. Both worth it to read once, but not more. There's a lot of that stuff in sci-fi, Keith, sadly. Yeah, there's Ryan the Scar saying, hiya, folks. Hiya, Ryan. Thanks for joining us. We're going ground tonight. We've been chatting about all sorts tonight, Ryan, but we've been having a wee natter about how great David Lynch's Dune is, and I suppose just running the usual. And we've been having a wee bit of a chat about, I suppose, all sorts here really tonight. We're on to Arthur C. Clarke, etc., etc. We're just coming up to the hour here, folks. So I'll give you a wee bit of an update, by the way, for anybody who hasn't been here with us from the start. As I said, we found out it was the 37th anniversary of Dune hitting the cinemas, so I would have been 11, and we're having a bit of a natter about that. And just anything at all, what you think of the film, or I do think it's great, and I think, as I said, I think every actor in it is iconic. It's the word I keep using. But just to let you know, we're having a book launch on Monday here on the station, live on the 20th of December at 9 p.m. Greenwich Mean Time, and I'm going to be joined by Dr. Cara Kennedy, who is the other Dune doctor, and her work. We're going to do basically doing a book launch for her, and the title of her book is Women's Agency in the Dune Universe, and for those who are well into the Bene Gesserit, this is going to be your thing. So we're going to be having a chat for 9 o'clock. I think we're going to do a sort of book launch, run through a bit about it for about an hour, hopefully, and then just open up to anybody who wants to have a little bit of a natter and chat away about all things Dune. But it's really interesting, and I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be a first for the station. So if you can join us at 9 p.m. Greenwich Mean Time on Monday, the 20th of December here on the station, we'll be doing our first ever book launch, and it's you'll have an opportunity to talk to two Dune doctors for once, which I think is pretty interesting. So really looking forward to it. We're going to try and start doing a few things with the station, folks, opening up in the new year, and we are going to be starting a Dune book club, and I'll have we're going to actually do a read through all of the Dune books. We'll do them. I think we'll do a chapter a week roughly, and tear into that with anybody who wants to join us. And we're going to, suppose, do a bit of an analysis with it as we go. Now, looking into a date and time for that, it's probably going to be on Mondays, and possibly not starting to the new year, because we've just got a few things to go. Excuse me. We've popped up a new audiobook of Dagon by H.P. Lovecraft this week. We've got a couple more to come, as I think we said, but we're hoping to do the first of the Conan stories as well. And I thought might do an Edgar Allan Poe before heading back onto some more science fiction. And just to say that we've opened up the station a bit to cover a bit more genre fiction and things like myth. Dune Doctor not too sure what to make of all things considered. Possibly, well, that's the way I put it. I prefer Doc myself, but I'm a doctor of philosophy, I'd argue. But there you go. But I like it. Well, it's to get Dune fans in, isn't it, Brad? I suppose. So there we go. And hopefully with the next audiobook will be coming up will be the Phoenix and the Sword, which is going to be the Conan one. And also that we've also decided, guys, if you weren't here at the start, very quickly then, to let you know that we're going to start running through, really get going at this tomorrow night, actually, the footnotes of the Ph.D., which are all there on the videos. But as I said, a lot of them are just references to books and etc. etc. But a lot of them are actually quite interesting little tidbits that I managed to bury into the PhD. So there's about 10,000 words in there that is some extra stuff, and just sort of seeing what we can dig out and pardon me, pass on to you guys. And yeah, we're going to sort of up our ante a wee bit, and I might be looking into creating a science fiction spectacular 1 hour show for the new year, just to talk about all things myself and science fiction, what I intend to do with the station. And Pythian Campbell says, oh, sorry, I missed one there. Spell Sword says Conan is so much fun. Really good writer, Robert E. Howard. It's interesting to me, Spell Sword, just doing pretty much what's the first Lovecraft. It's not the first love. It's the first of Lovecraft's Cthulhu mythos stories, arguably, would be Dagon, and we're going to run with. And interestingly, when you're trying to read them into a microphone, the flow isn't always there. And as much I think these guys are great authors, we're starting with their early works, and we're going to do the same with the first of the. It's not the first of his stories, but it's the first of the Conan stories as well. And it's just we're running with a few sci-fi firsts in terms of the audiobooks. And yeah, we did. Oh dear, yeah. So I'm looking at a few other things to come, and really looking forward to get going with some of that. And we're going to have some work, hopefully, on Alfred Bester soon, because I'm trying to tear through Tiger, and then I'm also looking forward to doing a bit of talking about Sapphire and Steel. But yeah, then we're going to get going with some stuff. But we're going to keep running with the footnotes on these live broadcasts each night. We'll sort of just try and dig out all the ones that are of note, not this page number that, but there are whole wee sections of paragraphs buried within it. And it just occurred to me, a lot of people, when they're going through the videos, they don't maybe read them, etc. And sometimes they're a bit. It is all a bit dense, I suppose. But it might be just another interesting way of looking at some of the wee interesting factoids that we might have missed or not presented to. Let's just catch up a wee bit here. Let's see. Paul could see the God Emperor in his visions in the next movie as a nod to what the fans like. I often thought about that why doesn't, I suppose all the possibilities, why doesn't Paul really see the God Emperor right at the end of it? And I often wondered, why does no man either really get to the end of the golden path? What happens at the end of it? Does it, is there another path? Childhood Zen was a sci-fi thing about 5 years ago, I think. Perhaps I think it was a while back. That shows you how badly I'm keeping track on time. It's available on YouTube as an audiobook. Key Cups 80 billion, death on an intergalactic industrial scale. Chom has supply chain management solutions for you. I saw a good one, guys, on Amazon the other day. I was just having a nosy. I was looking to buy myself some T-shirts, and I just saw it was meant to be a Combine Hornet Uber Advancer Mercantiles. And was I looking at a Chom T-shirt? I was not. I was looking at a Cheom. So it was a CHAOM T-shirt. So they got the spelling wrong. I thought it was. God, oh, they're poor people. It's going to be great, says Ryan. Yeah, hopefully looking to get all sorts going here with the station. And ideally, what we're hoping to do, if we can get the work habit right, is hopefully try and produce a video a week, an audiobook a week, and then do a couple of live broadcasts as well. And we're going to run with the Dune Book Club thing for anybody who wants a wee bit of help in understanding it and working our way through those books. Excuse me. Arguably, I've said it's quite hard for me to hit the books again, having read them so much. So I think it's a very good way of me being able to go through them all again, get the enjoyment out of it all again, and do it in small bites for me, and hopefully something helpful to anybody who wants to do that. I know there's other book clubs out there, but it's about everybody sort of looks at things in a different way. And I have a few different hats when I look at Dune, as I said. So hopefully I can bring a bit of expertise and bring a bit of fun to it, I suppose. Did you read, Pathan says, did you read Sabres of Paradise by Leslie Blanch? Excuse me. It is about Iman Shamil, who fought the Russians in their conquest of Georgia. He was a priest and a warrior, and I've heard it influenced Dune. I have not read that. Sounds interesting, Pathan. Iman Shamil fought the Russians in their conquest. Oh, how about we look at that up? Sounds like I've read so many things. Sabers of Paradise. There, scribble that down. I'm always up. Sabers of Paradise. Always interested in certain things, guys. People recommend stuff to me all the time, and I'm backlogged by about 20 years with my own reading. But I do manage to slip things in. The way I've managed to deal with a lot of things is lots and lots of multiple short stories at the minute. But try and hit one novel at a time. Iman Shama. Yeah, I'm always interested in interesting human beings from all over the place. Thank you for that. I haven't read it. Is that a biography, Pathan? Would you let me know? And I'll catch up with it down below. But thank you for the recommendation. Keith, Priest and Warrior, heard it influence the Dune. Yeah. There's a thing in Dune where is it Dune Messiah? It's to do with Korba. And I believe Herbert says that there's nothing so pathetic as a death commando who has become a priest. I believe not. That's just the one thing I know about the priest warrior priest type thing in Dune. Hope that's not disrespectful to Iman Shamal. That's just the first thing that popped into my head there. But I would be quite interested to know anything. I'm fascinated to know anything that is an influence on Dune because there's so much. Keith says that Paul can't see Leto because prescience hides prescience. Probably slipped my mind too. Fungui Moglunaf Cthulhu Rille Waga Nagal Fatagan. Excellent. Gratitude, Rada. Excuse me, sorry, I keep forgetting about that big microphone there. I probably spiked it there doing that little silly thing. There we go. Thank you very much, Keith. Do like the Call of Cthulhu stuff. It's very good. He saw the sun, Leto. He didn't see Ganima. What Hitler, but not him. Not see twins, but a son. That was better. I thought he could see Ganima, but not Leto. Also, how could he see through plot armor? This is quite a giggle. Let's see. That was not explained. Yeah, Keith, well played, mate. You got me wondering if I'm wrong about Leto Ganima. What's your feelings on the Leto Ganima thing? I have to say, there's a terrible thing in Northern Ireland. That there's a Ganima here, Babs. It's a terrible thing. And if we all understand what a Ganima is a spoil of war. And I'm talking about a baby as well. It's bizarre thing. Leto the second Ganima. I mean, Ganima just is gone, really, isn't she? Once we take the jump from Children of Dune to God Emperor, and it's almost I suppose it's like a void sometimes when these characters disappear. Especially with the jump, I think was it about 3,500 years. He didn't see the twins, but a son. That's right. So if we could not see Ganima, but not later. That's very interesting. And of course, the twins, one's female, one's male. Wonder what that's about. There's nothing perfect in their prescience. I still, if you have somebody that goes around telling you that they can see the future, well, this X, Y, and Z is going to happen, you're probably bound to get some kind of Cassandra complex anyway that nobody's going to believe you, to be honest with you. And it's the threads of the golden path. I often understood that it was one path through everything. That if you followed that one particular, that was it. That was the golden path. There are many, many, many other paths, but this is the golden one. It's a particular type of vision I've often gone with, and it's to do with I don't know. To me, it's to do with the dictator's vision. I think. Really behave. Something growling out there. The whole thing about the other memory as well. I think it really does break down into with Alia. Uh, how it just doesn't really make sense, and the prescience doesn't really make sense at the end of the day. Is it Herbert says that total prescience is death, doesn't he, or something like that? Something like that, I think. He could. I thought he could see Ganon, but not. He could only see Leto, and he uses through Leto. That's right. It's in my PhD, isn't it? It's one of the episodes. He looks through Leto's eyes and uses them to kill Skytail, I believe. I'm trying to get that bit in my head. Keith says Stephen Hawking threw a party for time travelers, advertised in a full page ad in the paper the day after. No one showed up. He got the date wrong, Keith. We were all there a day yesterday before him, a week later. Poor Stephen Hawking, terrible with dates. So there we go, folks. We're just, as I said, we were chatting away. Yeah, the prescience thing does break down, I think, quite badly. But particularly with Alia. And what I'm yeah, you see, Ganima, I'm not too sure what you're having a matter about Babs, but Ganima should have been as equally impressive, I think, a character as what Leto II became. And I suppose I can't remember those books that well back, but well, there is more than one golden path. Paul's path is different to Leto's, because whenever, if I can remember this rightly, as soon as Paul abandons his, that's it, and that Leto's path takes over, and it's a different path. See, again, this it doesn't make sense if we go into it far enough logically. So Paul's golden path takes up to a point, and then he turns away from it, and ultimately Leto II comes in, and that's the new golden path, and it is different. And that's what makes me question what is the golden path, and it's a metaphor that these guys talk to us about. The golden path is not a thing that we hear about from the Bene Gesserit, I think, until post Leto II. The golden path is a concoction, I think, of Paul Atreides and then later Leto II. It's their thing about how they're dealing with all of this prescience, if you see what I mean. Excuse me. And for me, the metaphor, I suppose, looking at it in what terms of Herbert was trying to do, if you apply any of your heroes, your real life political heroes, to Paul Atreides, the warning is that you've got a hero, okay, maybe a place apart, and then you have this pattern, whatever you want to call it. Now he calls it, I suppose, we have the golden path. And let me see if I can scribble this down to get it right. So we've got the Atreides, and we can have a golden path. Okay, and then we've got Camelot, don't we? And with Camelot, he's going with King Arthur, and he's going with Kennedy. And if you want that idea of Camelot, I think he includes Patton within that group. You've got Hitler. Hitler's got 1,000-year Reich. That's his golden path, his plan for that. We could go, often a lot of the within the European, whoever you want to call it, their path takes to monarchy or empire, I think. But it's your ideology that sets forth that guides everything you do. That's the way I look at it. So Paul's golden path, once he's done and he's out, that's it. He steps away from the responsibility. The next golden path, the next vision, if you like, Leto II's, takes us all towards a battle at the end of the universe. And again, he's not going to be around for it. So his path arguably ends the minute he ends up in the river and goes through his 4 deaths. So the question about now, Babs, you're probably better to answer this, because my memory is so poor on the last 2 books, is that I think that where we pick up within Heretics, Chapter House and Heretics, is that the Bene Gesserit, through the the memoirs of the Leto II, the God Emperor, are starting to try and figure out what they now know is the golden path. That's the way I'm assuming. If I think I'm doing it, I think my memory is kicking in right, But to me, the golden path is part of the warning. It is that dangerous thing that it's their excuse, and it's the one thing, as I've often pointed out, it's whenever it comes to sticking to Paul Atreides and Leto II, the God Emperor of Dune, as heroes, our raison d'etre for doing so, our excuse for doing so, for not going, my God, they're genocidal monsters, is the golden path. The golden path tells us that there's a justification for it, in their words, and that there's a reason for doing it, and that it's a moral reason, and it's survival of the species, boys and girls, kind of thing, if you see what I mean. Let's have a look. Had Paul perished from any of the myriad hazards between his birth and taking the water of life, says Keith, would another Bene Gesserit Kwisatz Haderach have arisen? Quite possibly. And there's in Dune, Keith, there's sections, I think, where Paul's looking at all the various alternatives, and I think this is the bit in the still tent before he emerges. I think he goes through suicide. Shit, what if I kill myself? Would that stop all this? It's an option. And as far as I remember correctly, this would probably be the most fresh in my mind, he understands that his mother will continue on the jihad with Alia at the front of it. It'll be all done in Alia's name instead of his. Now, you can take that argument back to prior to Alia being born. If he perished at any point between his birth, I suppose that's a natural. It's a natural occurrence. It could happen at any point to any candidate within the breeding program, and I'm assuming that the Bene Gesserit would have probably factored that in. You shouldn't really make those kind of assumptions, because no matter how amazingly brilliant everybody we think everybody is in the Dune universe, they're all incredibly stupid in one way. And it's the one thing that Frank likes to point out, is that they fundamentally don't understand how what they're up to affects them. And they always look at it, every group in the universe thinks of how their technology, their actions within the political, military, whatever, that it's their actions, how they affect things, how they manipulate things. But they never realize that it's particularly the criticism of the Bene Gesserit is they don't realize how their breeding program affects them, as etc. Not just physically, it's within a mental ethos, an educational ethos over time, this kind of thing. Let me just have a wee check. As the live chat scrolling away, but it could be anything, Brad Rose, to me, the golden path was the only way to avoid the destruction of humanity by an unknown enemy. Absolutely, Brad, and that's the way it's presented to you in the book. There you go. It's the only way. We don't know if that's true or not, though. That's the question. That's the trick. I'm not understanding what you mean, says Babs. The Bene Gesserit told Leto to tell them about his plan. Ah, right. Oh, that's, I was asking you to refresh my memory. I'm probably wrong, Babs. The Bene Gesserit told Leto to tell them about his plan and how they can stay out of his way or assist him. Ah, thank you. I thought that they were trying to figure out something. Yeah, it's been that long. Babs, I do apologize. That's why I was deferring to your knowledge. I was wondering if I was talking absolute nonsense. I thought that they were trying to figure out something, but I just can't remember the books properly at all. It's been a good number of years. I guess it raises the question of, is it right to do evil in the name of the greater good, if that greater good is the survival of the species? Conversation with Chenoweth on walk to Scianook. Ah, so that's in is that called Emperor? I'm going to have to, yeah. Keith Alia may have married Fade to reset the breeding path to what the Bene Gesserit want. Well, the plot line, I think, in Dune about possibly creating saving the bloodline, is to do with Lady Margot Fenring and Count Casimir Fenring. Whenever they're visiting the Harkonnen, It's implied that she leaves pregnant with Fade's with a daughter to Fade, or they have a female child. Um, if I'm pretty certain that's what's implied. So, which I think isn't ever actually kind of mentioned. I think later on, maybe one of those things that have pay, which would have meant to have had payoff. Mm. Well, it depends. Yeah, it's. I suppose Herbert talks a lot about this value judgments and so on. We talk about ethics and morality. Sorry, spell sword. Spell sword saying, I guess it raises the question of is it right to do evil in the name of the greater good, if that greater good is the survival of the species? Um, it often talks about value judgments and how do we know if something's good or bad in the first place? I suppose axiology. I suppose the determination of values and things like that. Um, hmm. The point is that from my point of view, I suppose the way, and I'm really gone into this probably far too much than to just peel back the, I suppose rather than just enjoy the book on one level. Hmm. The question I suppose that I'm trying to make is that you only have their word for it, if you know what I mean. Within their own minds, this is their raison d'etre. I must follow the golden path because I see this as happening. This is my particular vision. And what if they're wrong? Or they don't. I'll put it this way: if you run the problem logically, Should I wipe out thousands and thousands of millions and millions of people for 3,500 years worth of, say, humanity, in order that everybody's left at the end of this is ready for a fight? It's kind of pointless. If you see what I mean, you don't have to wipe them out. You could just let them just live their lives. Um, I don't know. Often these kind of absolute kind of things, and it's the chosen one in the battle at the end of the universe. They're tired old tropes within fantasy and science fiction. But yeah, the whole point about what Herbert's doing is, I suppose, we're supposed to look at Paul Atreides and go, why am I following this guy? It's meant to turn it on you. And I think the problem with Herbert is he turns it back again in Children of Dune, that regardless of what we say about this, we do end up, as much as I'm pointing out these ethical kind of dilemmas, we still end up liking Paul Atreides, don't we? I do. I still think of him as a hero. And then when it comes to Leto the Second, wow, we admire him, but the death toll is massive, and we can't look at the bodies and go, "Oh my God, that's horrible." And he's doing it for the greater good. At what point I think the idea is that the few that remain are the filtered through the survival of the fittest, um, which is often a mistaken concept. Um, the idea to kill we can't apply, if that's the nature of the golden path, then we can't say that we're doing an evil for the greater good, because it's actually for the lesser. You're wiping out the majority to create a highly specialized, very tough breed of individual, if you like. It's a whittling down. So it's not a greater good in any way. It's simply about survival of the species. Should you slaughter an entire species for it to survive? I suppose also comes down to all things. There is a season, if you know what I mean. If mankind's going to go extinct, then it will. I don't know. Philosophically, it takes us all sorts of places, and it's just speculation. Dun, 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 dun. But as I said, it's the presentation. You can't also remember that Frank Herbert's a writer. He's trying to sell books, story, and present a narrative to us that we can't hate and loathe our hero. It's not. It's going to be counterproductive. And I suppose Paul Atreides, do we call him a hero or an anti-hero? The whole thing is a comment on heroes. We can look at him in different ways. He's still the protagonist of our story, if you like. And in some ways, he becomes the antagonist. It's the same with Leto the Second. Yeah, they're very complicated. Let's see. Catching up, folks. Oh yeah, so we were just talking about the Bene Gesserit, or Margot Fenring coming to visit Fade. Golden Path is a solution to the galactic trolley problem, says Keith. Very good. Bob saying, at Brad, the Brian books have lots of golas. I wonder why that wasn't done on the Ithaca. If Paul had been born female and married Fed, it would have been one of those horror stories you hear about people's animals. Well, of course, there's some work on Dune as the psychotic, as a good example of what's known as the psychotic family novel, which is a great way of putting it, I think, if you like. There's guys, behave. Sorry, that's the watchdog. Hello to everybody, says David Segovia. Hi, David. How are you? Thanks for joining us. Damn it, Doc, you're not supposed to like. I know it's all very schizophrenic, isn't it? Ultimately that was my conclusion to what's Herbert trying to do with this hero. Is he giving us a warning? Is he telling us that? But why do we end up liking them? And and as I said, we never quite got finished with Herbert's message. And it's one of those. That's, I think, why Dune has stayed around so long, because in terms of the original books, it really was a cliffhanger. And as you say, Keith's saying there, but as you say, no one knows if the visions of the end of humanity are going to come true anyway. We never got to find out, so all we have is the ambiguity. But Keith, why not? Granted, what he produced was dangerous, but that doesn't make him unlikable. Herbert said so. Well, that's the thing. They're incredibly. You've made a very good point there, Babs. They're not unlikable, are they? They're quite the opposite. They've been deliberately constructed by the author to make them as charismatic and absolutely likable on every level, and that what is done to Paul initially is generated to garner our sympathy in every way. The grotesqueness of the bad guys. Oh, it's all evil. No, they've killed his daddy. What have they done? Oh, this poor kid. But he is the Kwisatz Haderach, Babs. There you go. Babs says, gotta go cook my dindins. Thanks very much for joining us, Babs. And I said, chuck us a wee email and I'll send you that link. There we go. So yeah, it's this is the thing. It's one of the good things about Dune, isn't it? That it opens up a whole quagmire of debate, and it's not simple. And we have the author's intent, I suppose. We know what he's trying to do. Once we've got past Dune, we really do know what he's up to. And at the same time, as I said, if you might get a new generation of Dune fans who walk away, if Denis Villeneuve finished it with just Dune, walking away once again thinking, wow, Paul Atreides, what a guy, what a nice guy. He's a very charismatic, good young man who taught those naughty Harkonnens such a lesson. Babs, the Atreides are hard not to like, says Spellsword. I don't know. Babs says, you have a great weekend. See you all when the other dog is in. Yeah, absolutely, Babs. Have a good one yourself. I'll be on again tomorrow night having a bit more of a chat. And so we just started with the first of these footnotes from the PhD, which was just a wee talk about, it was just mentioning about how Frank Herbert had been relegated from the Big Four. It's a bit of sort of academics poking at each other's works and attempting to rewrite science fiction history. Just the wee things. So we're going to start running. I'll get some of these footnotes organized. We'll have a wee chat about some of them starting tomorrow night as well. And Spellsword Night one there, made to be likable. If Atreides are hard not to like. I don't know. In the book, I find them quite unlikable. I find Leto not unlikable. I'll rephrase that. I find Leto the First as unlikable as the Baron. I think the Baron's quite. I mean, not unlikable. I think. Sorry, you're right. We like them all. I think they're charismatic and interesting. But I see him as equal. The Baron's equal in terms of what he's up to. Leto the First, really Mr. Propaganda in the book, I think, and propaganda to the core, a manipulator. Let me just catch up, folks. Hope you enjoy your dinner, Babs. Let's see, it's really not hard to like. Yeah, I suppose. And again, that's part of it, yeah. But it's their actions and their subtlety. I think they're very much Leto the First and the Baron are very similar. And I suppose also, made to be likable, says Keith. All charismatic leaders have a higher point of success, but the fall is even harder and dramatic. bigger they are, the harder they fall. Isn't that right? And careful careful who you're rude to on the way up. You might meet them on the way down. That kind of thing. Yeah. In the start, I began to like trees, but have my doubts after reading some of the original books. Yes. I suppose fundamentally, there's one thing we always forget. Let me just adjust this a wee bit, folks. Hang on. Oh, they're mucking about with me. There we are. I suppose that's a bit better. Sorry about that. I don't know. I think I'm looking up or something. I must have mucked about with my camera, but seems a bit strange. That's maybe better. Let me see. Apologies. There we are. That's maybe not too bad. There's one thing that I think a lot of people forget about the Dune series, and it's simply it's to do with its timeline, if you like. And simply put, that whenever we start with we get a bit of back history, and then we're told that the year 10,191. We reckon that's set about 20,000 years in our future. In fact, if you date it from Samuel Butler, which is what I did, it's about 20,000 years in the future. And it's to do with his point about how long it would take machines to evolve beyond humanity and so on. There's that timeline. There's the events of Dune itself as you read the books. And the one thing that we always forget is we're not looking at the action as it's happening. What you're getting is historical documents from either the near future or far future, feeding you back information, and you're getting snippets of what happened. They don't always align with how the historical documents present things. Or sorry, some of them are histories, some of them are, and I think in Dune it's almost all the Princess Irulan, her various historical books. But as you move through the Dune series, we get different biographies, histories, hagiographies. And the whole point is that we're being fed, this is all historical and it's happened a long time ago. It's all over. And to a degree, we're not even sure if what we're seeing is the truth. And that's the other interesting point that we've got to make about the Golden Path, is that even by the time we get to the very end of Dune, and Frank Herbert sadly passes away and we don't know what's going to happen, whatever does happen has to be finite within it, how it's contained, that because the historicity of all of the Dune universe is contained after that event, if that makes sense. Because we're looking back at it, and we forget that because we're reading the little historical. This is all being told to you as if it's a historical record. And as I said, the historicity of Dune at the beginning is near future. It's Irulan, so it's being told within her lifetime. And I think that's dominant up until Children of Dune. Once we go into the realm of the God Emperor and go further on, we're still getting our little historical snippets at the beginning of every book. I just made me think about it a wee bit, that if that's the case, that if we were to follow through with the seventh book the way Frank Herbert had intended, what would be at the end of it? It's interesting to think. I don't know what you guys think, but it would suggest that because it is a history, then there is an end to a golden path or whatever it is. There is an end to it all, and that somehow mankind does get through this, and this is what we're being fed backwards. I don't know what you think, but it kind of makes sense in my head. And especially that's kind of a tribute of Frank Herbert's to put those wee things in at the front of chapters. He makes you sound very clinical and authoritarian, and in fact, I suppose it gives you a bit of gravitas. It gives you authority. It gives a sense of history. And it's one of those things where that a lot of the depth of Dune comes from that I think that you've got a future history and a past history that you're rather unsure of. And what you're getting somewhere in between is, here's a bit of a text on, it was this year that Muad'Dib said that. A wee bit of action. Just like we're talking about the battles. You don't see them, if you see what I mean. And I still think of one of the things I thought that Denis Villeneuve's Dune is doing is bringing a lot of violence. Let's show you the violence. Let's show you the big battles. We want to impress you with all the stuff that is. Isn't it gorgeous? Join the army. That kind of thing. Go out and blow stuff up and shoot people. As a lot of our entertainment's that way, I think. But it's interesting that almost everything that the original book has messages about eroded, watered, distilled down within the new film. and that happens within the other TV series and movie as well. But I think they've done it so much to present you something that they're determined to look. I don't know. Not sure what they want it to look like. Just catch up. Brad Rose said, "I like that Dune is humans is against Star Wars being a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. Means that the universe isn't humans, just amazing convergent evolution." There was somebody put out a theory a long time ago, Brad, that Star Wars a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away, again being presented as sort of history, that it was all about cockroaches or something like, or some kind of insect civilization. It's something to do with how Princess Leia was the only female in the first movie or something like that. I can remember. Not that she is. There's other females there, but yeah, I don't. It was an article, something I read years ago. I wonder what it was about. That was what it was about. I'm just kind of wondering who wrote it and the details. I'm trying to remember, but I can't. It makes that feeling of historical depth is what makes it so engrossing. Yeah, I agree. It lends a lot to it. And yeah, I suppose that, it shows the purveyance of. It's almost like this is an empire. Put this way, the books that you would read in school, this kind of thing. Arguably, I'm a product of empire, so I kind of understand. You'll get the Child's Book of Muad'Dib, Princess Irulan's Guide to. Irulan is the Atreides propaganda machine at that point, I think, and it's something that's mirrored later on whenever the God Emperor. Well, sorry, when Leto II, before he's transformed, I think, is talking to Farad'n, of House Carino, and that he's going to make him his historian. And once again, it's about there's a degree as to who's feeding the story, who's got control of the narrative, who's telling the story. I have to say, my memory is so bad on the last three books now, that part of me is looking forward to doing this book club thing actually to actually get through them again and reinvigorate it, because all I can do is remember vague details of the last three books. And I'd argue even maybe my memory of Children of Dune's getting a bit sloppy. Hello, Holly. There's my big dogs just popped in there. There we go. So, yeah. If anybody's got any more questions or comments, fire away, folks. Hello, Big Sausage. What are you up to? Oh, you've been outside. It's freezing. You cold? My big Holly Dolly has just come out. Wait, see this? There you go. Hello. You saying hello? Big Sausage. What's that? Huh? What you want? Excuse the interruption, folks. Hello, is that you? This is Holly Holiday, by the way. All right. There you go. Are you looking at yourself? Sorry about this. I was going to say there, we'll keep going to about midnight, folks. But I think I might have to maybe get this lady out for a walk. But, I said the wrong word. Didn't I? Oh, am I getting a kiss? Do you want a kiss? Oh, no kiss? Oh, big sausage. Ah, dear, oh dear. Well, I'll tell you what, folks. Listen, it's been great chatting. I'll tell you what. I'll go on to midnight. Well, we're going to be back on tomorrow night, actually, at 10 o'clock. We'll have another. I'm going to attempt to maybe use some new technology to connect up with YouTube tomorrow night, with the OBS studio, etc. We're hoping to do a wee bit of mucking around with that soon. Hopefully, going to start be able to bring you something that's going to look a wee bit different and try and bring other things into the science fiction station. So I will say goodnight because my other one's on here now. I've got Evil Noodles and Holly Holiday. All right, Noodles, what are you at, love? Huh? You want to say hello? Come here. There we go. There she is. Oh, the deal. That's Evil Noodles and Holly Holiday. Right. Oh, you want to go for a walk, do you? Oh, okay. All right. Please go. Well, I'll tell you what. All right, I'm coming. Sorry about that, folks, but real life. You want out? Okay. Sorry about that, but real life is interfered, folks. But I'll tell you what. So sorry about that. But Oh, they're going nuts. I'll tell you what, folks, we'll be back on tomorrow night at 10 o'clock to continue this wee chat on. And as I said, we're going to start having a wee look at all the footnotes that are in the Dune Ph.D., which is this big, mighty book. Oh, here. There we go. We've got about 10,000 words buried in there. So we're hopefully going to try and just run through a few things of interest with you and just keep up the Dune chat as well. And as I said, we're going to start looking at a few new things and hopefully bringing a few new topics and stuff to the station. And trying to build it up a wee bit. And we're also going to be trying to. We've sacked our old band, by the way. Happy Shrapnel is no more. And we'll be having a new band doing some incidental music. Well, it'll be me and Lynn, hopefully. And our band's name, well, I'll not tell you what it is, but hopefully coming soon, some new kind of music for the station. And all sorts of wee oddities, hopefully, that I've got some wee bits on sci-fi. So in the meantime, folks, I will say sorry about that and good night. And we'll see you tomorrow night at 10 o'clock. And if you can join us on Monday at 9 o'clock Greenwich Mean Time, that's Monday the 20th. We'll be having the book launch of Women's Agency in the Dune Universe by Dr. Cara Kennedy. So I hope you can all make it. Sorry about the girls. Spellsword's got love and all there for the doggies. Sorry about that. They're usually pretty well behaved, folks. Good night. Thanks for the stream. So thank you very much, everybody, for joining us. And we'll see you all tomorrow night at 10 o'clock. Thanks a lot. All the best. That's GMT. Thanks a lot. Take care now. Bye-bye. Oh, he's going for a walk, huh?